Daniel Carter had always been fascinated by the past. Growing up in a world dominated by futuristic skyscrapers and advanced technology, he found himself drawn to stories of humanity's earliest attempts to explore the stars. It wasn't the shiny rockets or cutting-edge gadgets that intrigued him, it was the people. The brave men and women who left everything behind to carve out new lives on distant planets. They were dreamers, adventurers, and sometimes victims of circumstance. On a quiet afternoon, Daniel sat in his small office at the Institute of Galactic History, surrounded by piles of dusty files and flickering screens. His fingers danced over a keyboard as he sifted through old records from the early days of space colonization. Most of these missions ended in failure. Ships vanished without a trace, colonies collapsed under harsh conditions, and entire populations were lost to time. But one name kept appearing in fragmented logs. Epsilon-7.Epsilon-7 was supposed to be just another failed attempt. Official reports stated that the colony had gone dark less than 5 years after its founding. Communications ceased due to equipment malfunctions, supplies ran out, and rescue missions never reached them in time. Earth moved on, focusing its efforts on more promising ventures. But something about those incomplete reports nagged at Daniel. There were whispers in the data-odd energy readings, faint signals picked up decades later, and conflicting accounts from nearby explorers who claimed to have seen lights in the system where Epsilon 7 once orbited. He leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. "There's more to this," he muttered to himself. For weeks, he'd been chasing leads, piecing together scraps of information like a puzzle, missing half its pieces. He needed someone with expertise beyond his own if he wanted to make sense of it all, and there was only one person he could think of. Rebecca Holt worked 2 floors above him in the astrophysics department. She was known for her sharp mind and no-nonsense attitude. When Daniel knocked on her door, she looked up from her desk with a raised eyebrow. Her glasses perched precariously on the edge of her nose, and stacks of papers threatened to topple. Over beside her, "What do you want, Carter?" she asked, her tone brisk but not unkind. They weren't close friends, but they'd collaborated before on smaller projects. She respected his dedication, even if she thought some of his theories were far-fetched. "I need your help," Daniel said, stepping inside. "I've been digging into the Epsilon 7 mission. You remember it, right? The colony everyone assumes failed?" Rebecca sighed, setting down her pen. "Of course I remember it. Everyone does. What about it? I think it might still exist." For a moment, Rebecca just stared at him. Then she laughed, a short, incredulous sound. "You're joking, right? That place has been dead for centuries. If anyone survived, we would have heard something by now." "That's what I thought too," Daniel admitted, "but look at this." He pulled up a holographic display on his wrist device, showing her a series of charts and graphs. "These are energy signatures detected near the Epsilon 7 system over the last 100 years. They're inconsistent, sure, but they match patterns we've seen from other active colonies. And then there's this." He tapped the screen again, revealing a grainy image captured by a passing probe decades earlier. It showed what appeared to be artificial structures on the surface of the planet. Rebecca frowned, leaning closer to examine the data. "This is interesting, but it's not proof. Those readings could be natural phenomena. As for the image, it's too blurry to draw any conclusions." "I know," Daniel said quickly. "That's why I need your help. You're better at analyzing this stuff than I am. Together, we can figure out exactly where these signals are coming from. Maybe even pinpoint the location of the colony if it's still there." Rebecca hesitated. She didn't have time for wild goose chases, especially ones that sounded like science fiction plots. But there was something in Daniel's eyes, a mix of excitement and desperation, that made her pause. He truly believed he was onto something. And deep down, she couldn't deny that the idea of finding a lost human settlement was thrilling. "Fine," she said finally. "But if this turns out to be a waste of time, I'm blaming you." A grin spread across Daniel's face. "Deal." Over the next few weeks, Daniel and Rebecca pored over every scrap of information they could find. They cross-referenced old mission logs, studied star maps, and ran simulations based on the energy signatures. It was tedious work, but slowly, a clearer picture began to emerge. The signals were indeed coming from the general area where Epsilon 7 should have been located. More importantly, they seemed to follow a pattern spikes occurring at regular intervals, almost like pulses. It's almost as if they're trying to communicate, Rebecca mused one evening as they pored over their findings in her lab. Or maybe they're testing equipment. Either way, it suggests activity. But how's that possible? Daniel asked. The original settlers only had basic tools. Even if they somehow managed to survive, they wouldn't have the resources to build anything capable of producing these kinds of emissions. Unless they adapted, Rebecca replied. We've seen it happen before. Isolated groups often develop unique solutions to survive. Maybe they stumbled upon something, some resource or technology that gave them an edge. Daniel nodded slowly. If that's true, we could be looking at a completely self-sufficient society, one that's been evolving independently for centuries. The implications were staggering. If Epsilon 7 really did exist, it would rewrite everything humanity knew about space colonization. But proving it wouldn't be easy. They needed to go there themselves. Securing funding for an expedition wasn't easy. Most officials dismissed their proposal as speculative nonsense, but Daniel and Rebecca refused to give up. They presented their case to anyone who would listen, using every bit of evidence they had gathered. Eventually, they caught the attention of Dr. Helen Meyer, a senior researcher at the Institute who specialized in interstellar exploration. Impressed by their determination and intrigued by the possibility of discovering a lost colony, she agreed to back their mission. With approval secured, preparations began in earnest. Their journey would take them aboard the Orion's Echo, a mid-sized exploration vessel equipped with state-of-the-art sensors and survival gear. While not designed for combat, it was sturdy enough to handle the long trip to the Epsilon 7 system. The crew consisted of just 4 members: Daniel, Rebecca, pilot James Parker, and engineer Maria Lopez. As launch day approached, Daniel felt a mixture of excitement and anxiety. This was the culmination of months of hard work, but it also carried enormous risks. What if they arrived to find nothing but ruins? Or worse, what if they encountered hostility? He tried to push those thoughts aside, focusing instead on the potential rewards. Discovering a living, breathing human colony would change history. It would prove that humanity's spirit of exploration was stronger than any obstacle. On the morning of their departure, Daniel stood on the observation deck of the spaceport, staring out at the sleek form of the Orion's Echo. Rebecca joined him a moment later, holding 2 cups of coffee. Nervous? She asked, handing him one of the cups. A little, Daniel admitted. What if we're wrong? We won't know unless we try, Rebecca said firmly. And even if we don't find what we're looking for, we'll still learn something. That's worth it. Daniel smiled, feeling a surge of gratitude for his partner. Without her, none of this would have been possible. Together, they walked toward the ship, ready to embark on the adventure of a lifetime. The journey to Epsilon 7 took several weeks. During that time, the crew grew closer, bonding over shared meals and late-night conversations. James proved to be an excellent pilot, navigating the ship through asteroid fields and gravitational anomalies with ease. Maria kept the engines running smoothly, often tinkering with spare parts to improve efficiency. Daniel and Rebecca spent most of their time reviewing data, double-checking calculations, and preparing for whatever lay ahead. Finally, the day came when they entered the Epsilon 7 system. As the planet loomed larger on the view screen, a hush fell over the crew. From a distance, it looked barren and lifeless, a rocky wasteland covered in dust and craters. But as they drew closer, details began to emerge. Strange shapes dotted the landscape, glinting faintly in the dim light of the red dwarf star. There, Rebecca said, pointing to a cluster of structures near the equator. Those aren't natural formations. Daniel's heart raced as he zoomed in on the image. The buildings were unlike anything he'd ever seen, angular and utilitarian, yet oddly elegant. They seemed to blend seamlessly into the environment, as if designed to withstand the planet's harsh conditions. Are those dollar panels? Maria asked, squinting at the screen. It looks like it, Rebecca confirmed. They must have figured out how to harness energy from the star. That explains the emissions we detected. James brought the ship into orbit, scanning the surface for signs of movement. To everyone's surprise, they found traces of activity, not just automated systems, but actual life. Lights flickered in the windows of some buildings and vehicles moved along narrow roads connecting different parts of the settlement. They're alive, Daniel whispered, barely able to believe it. After all this time, they're still here. Rebecca placed a hand on his shoulder, her expression one of awe and disbelief. Let's see if they're willing. The Orion's Echo descended through the thin atmosphere of the planet, its engines humming softly as it approached the surface. Daniel Carter sat at the edge of his seat, gripping the armrest tightly. He could feel his heart pounding in his chest as the ship's sensors scanned the area below. The colony stretched out before them, a patchwork of angular buildings, domed structures, and sprawling solar arrays that shimmered faintly under the dim red light of the star. It was both alien and familiar, a strange blend of human ingenuity and adaptation to an unforgiving environment. Rebecca Holt leaned forward, her eyes fixed on the view screen. This is incredible, she murmured. They've built all of this with almost no outside help. Look at how they've integrated their technology into the landscape. James Parker, the pilot, brought the ship down gently on a flat expanse near the edge of the settlement. As the engines powered down, the crew exchanged nervous glances. They had prepared for this moment, but now that they were here, uncertainty crept in. What would they find? Would the inhabitants welcome them or see them as intruders? Maria Lopez double-checked the environmental readings. The air isn't breathable, she announced. We'll need suits if we want to step outside. Daniel nodded. Already pulling on his suit? Let's do it. We didn't come this far to stay inside. Once everyone was ready, they stepped out of the ship and onto the dusty ground. The planet was eerily quiet, save for the soft crunch of their boots against the rocky surface. The sky above was a deep shade of crimson, casting everything in a muted glow. Despite the beauty, there was an undeniable sense of isolation. This world was harsh, unforgiving, and yet people had managed to survive here. As they approached the nearest building, a group of figures emerged from behind a low wall. They wore simple, utilitarian clothing made from unfamiliar materials, and their faces were partially obscured by protective masks. For a moment, neither side moved. Then one of the figures stepped forward, a woman with sharp features and piercing eyes. She removed her mask, revealing a face lined with age but marked by strength. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice calm but firm. Her accent was strange, a mix of old Earth dialects that sounded almost archaic. "My name is Daniel Carter," Daniel replied, raising his hand slightly to show he meant no harm. "We're from Earth. We came because we thought this colony might still exist." The woman studied him carefully, then turned her gaze to Rebecca and the others. After a long pause, she spoke again. "I am Eleanor Grant. I lead this settlement." She gestured toward the buildings behind her. "You call us Epsilon 7, but we have another name now." "We are the Epsilons." Eleanor's words sent a shiver down Daniel's spine. These people weren't just survivors. They were descendants of the original colonists. Generations had passed since Earth last heard from them, and in that time they had forged their own identity. "We mean no harm," Rebecca said quickly, stepping forward. "We only wanted to learn about your colony, your existence. It changes everything." Eleanor nodded slowly. "Come with me. There's much to discuss." Inside one of the larger domes, the crew was led to a spacious chamber filled with curious artifacts and advanced machinery. The walls were lined with panels displaying complex data streams, and the air smelled faintly of ozone. It was clear that the Epsilons had developed technologies far beyond what Earth had expected. Eleanor motioned for them to sit at a circular table. Once they were settled, she began to explain. When contact with Earth was lost, we faced many challenges. Our equipment failed, our supplies dwindled, and we knew no rescue would come. But instead of giving up, we adapted. We learned to live off the land, to build tools from whatever resources we could find. Over time, we discovered ways to harness energy from our star and extract minerals from the soil. Slowly, we rebuilt not just our homes, but our society. Her words painted a picture of resilience and innovation. The Epsilons had created a self-sufficient community, relying on sustainable practices and cutting-edge solutions. They had even expanded beyond the original settlement, constructing orbital stations to mine asteroids and grow crops in zero gravity. But why didn't you try to reach out to Earth? Daniel asked, unable to hide his curiosity. Surely you must have known. We'd want to know you survived. Eleanor's expression darkened slightly. At first we tried, but every attempt failed. The distances were too great, the signals too weak. Eventually we realized that Earth had moved on. To them, we were dead. And so we focused on surviving and thriving on our own. Rebecca listened intently, her mind racing with questions. Your technology... It's remarkable. How did you achieve so much without support? Eleanor smiled faintly. Necessity breeds invention. When survival depends on solving problems, people find ways to overcome obstacles. We also had something Earth lacks: unity. Here, everyone works together for the good of the colony. There's no greed, no division. Every decision is made with the future of our people in mind. Though her tone was proud, there was a hint of sadness in her voice. It was clear that the Epsilon's journey had not been easy. They had endured hardships that left scars, both visible and invisible. As the conversation continued, Daniel noticed subtle signs of tension among the Epsilons who lingered nearby. Some watched the visitors with open curiosity, while others seemed wary, their body language guarded. One man in particular caught his attention, a tall figure with broad shoulders and a stern expression. He stood apart from the rest, his arms crossed as he observed the exchange. That's Samuel Drake, Eleanor said, noticing Daniel's glance. He leads a faction within the colony that opposes any interaction with outsiders. He believes Earth will bring nothing but trouble. Why does he think that? Rebecca asked cautiously. Because history has taught us to be cautious, Samuel interjected, stepping forward. His voice was cold, his eyes narrowing as he addressed the visitors. Earth abandoned us once. Why should we trust you now? You'll take what we've built, exploit our knowledge, and leave us worse off than before. Daniel felt a pang of frustration at Samuel's accusation. That's not why we're here. We came to learn, to understand. If anything, your success proves that humanity can adapt and endure. That's something worth celebrating. Samuel snorted derisively. Words are cheap. Actions matter. Tell me, Carter, if Earth learns about our advancements, will they respect our independence? Or will they send ships to claim what we've worked centuries to create? Before Daniel could respond, Eleanor raised a hand, silencing both men. Enough. This discussion serves no purpose now. Let us focus on what matters, understanding each other. Perhaps there is room for cooperation, but it must be approached carefully. Though the tension eased slightly, it was clear that Samuel's distrust ran deep. As the meeting drew to a close, Eleanor offered to give the visitors a tour of the colony. Daniel and Rebecca accepted eagerly, eager to see more of this extraordinary place. Over the next few hours, they explored the settlement, marveling at its complexity. The Epsilons had transformed the barren planet into a functional ecosystem. Underground aquifers provided water, greenhouses yielded crops, and automated systems maintained a delicate balance between consumption and conservation. Even the architecture reflected their resourcefulness, with buildings designed to regulate temperature and conserve energy. But amidst the wonder, Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. He noticed subtle signs of division. Within the colony, graffiti scrawled on walls, whispered arguments in shadowy corners. It became clear that not everyone shared Eleanor's vision of peaceful coexistence with Earth. Later that evening, as the crew gathered back at the Asterisk Orions. Echo Asterisk, Daniel voiced his concerns. These people have accomplished amazing things, but they're not united. Samuel's faction seems determined to keep Earth at arm's length. If we push too hard, we risk making things worse. Rebecca nodded thoughtfully. We need to tread carefully. Showing respect for their achievements is important, but so is addressing their fears. Maybe we can propose some kind of exchange, sharing knowledge or resources without threatening their autonomy. Maria chimed in, her practical nature shining through. We should also consider the risks. If tensions escalate, we could find ourselves in the middle of a conflict we don't fully understand. James, who had remained quiet until now, spoke up. Whatever happens, we can't forget why we're here. Finding this colony is a monumental discovery. Humanity needs to know about it, but how we share that information matters. As they talked, Daniel gazed out at the glowing lights of the settlement. The Epsilons had defied the odds, creating a thriving civilization in the most unlikely of places. Their story was one of hope, resilience, and determination, but it was also a reminder of the fragility of trust and the importance of finding common ground. For now, they had taken the first step. The real challenge lay ahead, bridging the gap between two worlds separated by centuries of silence. The days that followed were a mix of wonder and unease for Daniel Carter and his crew. Each visit to the colony revealed new layers of complexity about the Epsilon's way of life. They marveled at the ingenuity behind their orbital stations, which floated silently above the planet, collecting resources from nearby asteroids. The stations were powered by sleek solar panels that glinted like mirrors in the dim red light of the star. It was clear that the Epsilons had not only survived but thrived, building a society that blended science, sustainability, and tradition. Rebecca Holt spent most of her time studying the colony's energy systems with Eleanor Grant. She was fascinated by how the Epsilons had adapted old Earth technology to suit their needs. "You've made incredible progress," she said one afternoon as they stood inside a control room filled with glowing screens and humming machines. "This kind of efficiency is years ahead of what we're doing on Earth." Eleanor smiled faintly, though her expression remained guarded. "We had no choice. Survival forced us to innovate. But it wasn't just about technology, it was about mindset. Every decision we made was for the good of the whole, not individual gain." Rebecca nodded, understanding the weight of those words. On Earth, progress often came at the cost of inequality or environmental damage. Here, the Epsilons seemed to have struck a balance between advancement and responsibility. Yet, despite their achievements, there was an underlying tension in the air, a sense that not everyone shared Eleanor's vision. Daniel noticed this tension firsthand when he met Clara Bennett, a young engineer who worked on the orbital stations. She was soft-spoken but sharp-witted, her eyes reflecting both pride in her work and a deep-seated worry. As they walked together through the settlement, Daniel asked her about life in the colony. "It's not perfect," Clara admitted, glancing around cautiously as if someone might overhear them. "Most of us are proud of what we've built, but there are divisions. Some people think we should stay isolated forever, cut off from Earth completely. Why do they feel that way?" Daniel asked gently. Clara hesitated before answering. "Fear. Mostly fear of being exploited or controlled. Samuel Drake has been spreading rumors that Earth will try to take everything we've worked for. He says opening ties will destroy us." "But you don't agree with him?" She shook her head. "No, I think isolation is dangerous too. If we shut ourselves off completely, we risk stagnation. We need fresh ideas, new perspectives, but convincing others isn't easy." Her words stayed with Daniel long after their conversation ended. He realized that the colony's future hung in a delicate balance. Eleanor wanted cooperation, Samuel demanded isolation, and the rest of the Epsilons were caught in the middle, back at the Orion's Echo. The crew gathered to discuss their observations. Maria Lopez had spent her time examining the colony's infrastructure, noting its strengths and vulnerabilities. "Their systems are impressive, but they're not invincible," she said. "If tensions rise, it could destabilize everything they've built," James Parker agreed. "And we're stuck right in the middle of it. If things go south, we'll have to decide whose side we're on or whether we cut our losses and leave." Daniel frowned. We can't just walk away. Not now. These people deserve a chance to reconnect with Earth, but we have to be careful. Pushing too hard could make things worse. Rebecca leaned forward, her tone thoughtful. What if we propose something neutral? A cultural exchange, maybe? Share knowledge without imposing any conditions. That way, they can see we're not here to take anything. It's worth a shot, Daniel said, but we'll need Eleanor's support. Without her, it won't work. The next day, Daniel and Rebecca met with Eleanor to present their idea. They explained that Earth could offer medical advancements, scientific expertise, and other benefits in exchange for insights into the Epsilon's innovations. It doesn't have to be one-sided, Rebecca emphasized. Both sides stand to gain. Eleanor listened carefully, her expression unreadable. When they finished, she sighed deeply. Your proposal makes sense, but convincing my people won't be easy. Samuel and his followers are already spreading fear. They'll see this as confirmation of their worst fears that Earth wants to exploit. Yes? Then let us help you address those concerns, Daniel suggested. We can hold a meeting with the colony's leaders, explain our intentions clearly. Maybe even show them examples of successful partnerships between Earth and other colonies. Eleanor considered this for a moment before nodding slowly. Very well, but tread lightly. One wrong move could ignite conflict. The meeting took place in the same domed chamber where they had first spoken with Eleanor. Dozens of Epsilons gathered, their faces reflecting a mix of curiosity and suspicion. Samuel Drake stood near the front, his arms crossed and his jaw set in defiance. As Daniel and Rebecca addressed the crowd, explaining their proposal for cooperation, murmurs rippled through the room. We understand your concerns, Daniel began, his voice steady. Earth hasn't always treated its colonies fairly. But times have changed. We're here because we admire what you've accomplished. Your survival proves that humanity is capable of overcoming even the greatest challenges. Rebecca stepped forward, holding up a holographic display of Earth's recent advancements. Imagine what we could achieve together. Combining your resourcefulness with our research could lead to breakthroughs neither of us could accomplish alone. Samuel scoffed loudly, drawing angry glares from some in the crowd. Breakthroughs or exploitation? You talk about partnership, but history tells a different story. Earth takes what it wants and leaves destruction in its wake. His words sparked heated arguments among the Epsilons. Some shouted in agreement while others defended the visitors. The atmosphere grew tense, threatening to spiral out of control. Eleanor stepped forward, raising her hands for silence. Enough, she commanded, her voice cutting through the chaos. When the room quieted, she turned to Samuel. Your concerns are valid, but so are theirs. Instead of dividing us, let's focus on finding common ground. Samuel glared at her but said nothing more. The meeting adjourned without resolution, leaving both sides frustrated but determined to find a solution. That night, Daniel found himself unable to sleep. He wandered outside the ship, gazing up at the glowing orbital stations above. Clara joined him unexpectedly, her presence calm yet uneasy. You look troubled, she said softly. I am, Daniel admitted. I thought coming here would bring hope, but now I'm not so sure. What if we can't bridge the gap between Earth and the Epsilons? Clara smiled faintly. Hope is fragile, but it's also resilient. Even small steps can lead to big changes. Just don't give up. Her words gave Daniel a renewed sense of purpose. He knew the road ahead would be difficult, but he also believed that the potential rewards mutual understanding. Shared progress were worth the effort. As he returned to the ship, he felt a flicker of optimism. The Epsilons had overcome countless challenges to build their society. Perhaps, with patience and perseverance, they could overcome this one too. The days following the tense meeting were filled with uncertainty. Daniel Carter and his crew felt the weight of the colony's divisions pressing down on them. Samuel Drake's faction grew bolder, spreading fear and distrust among the Epsilons. Posters appeared on walls, warning against Earth's influence. Some even accused Eleanor Grant of betraying the colony by entertaining the visitors. The fragile peace that had held for centuries was beginning to crack. Rebecca Holt tried to focus on her work, analyzing data from the colony's energy systems, but it was hard to ignore the growing unrest. She often found herself discussing the situation with Clara Bennett, who seemed torn between loyalty to her people and a desire for change. Samuel's anger isn't just about Earth, Clara confided one evening as they walked through the settlement. It's about control. He wants to keep things the way they are because it gives him power. But doesn't he realize how much the colony could benefit from cooperation? Rebecca asked, frustration creeping into her voice. Clara shook her head. To Samuel, any change is a threat. He sees Earth as a symbol of everything he fears: loss of independence, loss of identity. Convincing him otherwise won't be easy. Rebecca sighed, glancing at the glowing lights of the orbital stations overhead. Then we'll have to find another way. Maybe if we can prove our intentions are genuine, others will see reason. Meanwhile, Daniel spent his time learning more about the colony's history. Eleanor had granted him access to their archives, a vast collection of records documenting the struggles and triumphs of the Epsilons. As he sifted through old logs and photographs, he gained a deeper appreciation for what they had endured. The original settlers had faced unimaginable hardships, starvation, disease, isolation, but they had persevered, passing down their knowledge and values to future generations. One day, while reviewing a set of maintenance reports, Daniel noticed something unusual. A series of entries mentioned repairs to one of the orbital stations, describing damage caused by internal sabotage. At first, he dismissed it as routine wear and tear, but the pattern caught his attention. The incidents had occurred sporadically. Over the past few months, always targeting critical systems? Curious, Daniel brought the information to Rebecca. Do you think this could be connected to Samuel? He asked. If he's trying to undermine cooperation, sabotaging the stations would send a strong message. It's possible, Rebecca said thoughtfully, but proving it won't be easy. We'd need evidence, and even then, accusing him outright could make things worse. Daniel nodded, his mind racing. If Samuel was behind the sabotage, it meant the situation was more dangerous than they realized. The orbital stations weren't just symbols of the colony's progress. They were vital to its survival. Disrupting them could have catastrophic consequences. Determined to uncover the truth, Daniel enlisted Clara's help. She agreed reluctantly, knowing the risks involved. Together, they visited the damaged station, pretending to conduct routine inspections. As they examined the affected areas, Clara pointed out subtle signs of tampering loose wires, scorch marks, and improperly sealed panels. This wasn't an accident, she whispered, her voice barely audible over the hum of machinery. Someone did this on purpose? Daniel nodded grimly. We need to document everything. If we can prove Samuel's involvement, it might give Eleanor the leverage she needs to counter his influence. They worked quickly, taking detailed scans and photographs. By the time they returned to the surface, both were exhausted but hopeful. With the evidence in hand, they approached Eleanor, explaining what they had discovered. Eleanor listened intently, her expression darkening as she reviewed the data. This is serious, she said finally. If Samuel is willing to sabotage our own infrastructure to further his agenda, then we're dealing with more than just ideological differences. This is a threat to the colony itself. What do you plan to do? Daniel asked cautiously. I'll bring this to the council, Eleanor replied, but I'll need your support. Your presence here shows that not all outsiders mean harm. It might help sway those who are undecided. The council meeting took place in the same domed chamber where tensions had boiled over before. This time, however, the atmosphere was charged with urgency. Eleanor presented the evidence of sabotage, pointing out the potential dangers to the colony's survival. We cannot allow fear and division to destroy what we've built, she declared, her voice firm. Those who seek to undermine us must be held accountable. Samuel Drake stood up immediately, his face flushed with anger. You accuse me without proof, he shouted, glaring at Eleanor. This is nothing but a smear campaign orchestrated by Earth's puppets. Murmurs rippled through The crowd, some siding with Samuel, others questioning his motives. Daniel stepped forward, addressing the room. "We didn't come here to take sides or cause trouble. All we want is to understand your achievements and share ideas. But if someone is willing to endanger the colony to stop that, then it's not just about Earth, it's about protecting your future." His words struck a chord with many in the audience. Slowly, the tide began to turn. Even some of Samuel's supporters started to waver, unsure whether his actions were truly in the colony's best interest. In the end, the council voted to investigate the sabotage claims further. Samuel stormed out of the chamber, his face twisted with rage, but the damage to his credibility had been done. For the first time, Eleanor's vision of cautious engagement with Earth gained significant ground. As the dust settled, Daniel and Rebecca met with Eleanor to discuss next steps. "This is a start," Eleanor said, her tone measured but hopeful. "But rebuilding trust will take time for both my people and yours." "We understand," Rebecca replied. "And we're willing to take it slow. Small steps can lead to big changes." Eleanor nodded, offering a faint smile. "Thank you for standing with us. Not everyone would have gone so far to help." Daniel felt a surge of pride as he looked around the room. Despite the challenges, they had made progress. The road ahead would still be difficult, but the foundation for cooperation had been laid. That night, as he gazed up at the stars from the surface of the planet, Daniel allowed himself a moment of quiet reflection. The Epsilon's resilience inspired him, a testament to humanity's ability to adapt and overcome. And though the journey was far from over, he knew that every step forward mattered. For now, hope remained alive. The weeks that followed the council meeting were a turning point for both the Epsilons and Earth's envoys. Tension still lingered, but the investigation into the sabotage brought clarity to the colony's divisions. Samuel Drake's influence waned as evidence mounted against him. Records from the orbital stations revealed traces of unauthorized access linked to his faction, and witnesses came forward with accounts of his inflammatory rhetoric. Though he denied involvement, the damage to his reputation was irreversible. Eleanor Grant used this momentum to push for unity within the colony. She called for open discussions in public forums, inviting all Epsilons to voice their concerns and hopes about the future. Daniel Carter and Rebecca Holt attended these gatherings, listening intently as people shared their thoughts. Some expressed fear of Earth's intentions, while others spoke of curiosity and excitement at the prospect of reconnecting with humanity's homeworld. The debates were passionate but constructive, reflecting a community determined to find common ground. Clara Bennett became a key ally during this time. Her calm demeanor and technical expertise earned her respect among her peers, and she often acted as a bridge between the visitors and the colonists. "Change is hard," she told Daniel one evening after a particularly heated forum. "But if we focus on what we share instead of what divides us, maybe we can move forward." Daniel nodded, grateful for her support. "You're braver than you think, Clara. Standing up like this takes courage." She smiled faintly. "Maybe, but I'm not doing it alone. We're all in this together." As trust grew, so did the scope of collaboration. Eleanor proposed a trial exchange program, allowing small groups of Epsilons and Earth representatives to work side by side. The goal was simple: demonstrate mutual benefits without imposing conditions. Engineers from the colony partnered with Maria Lopez to improve the Orion's Eco-S systems, while medical experts shared advancements in treatments developed under harsh planetary conditions. In return, Rebecca introduced the Epsilons to Earth's latest research in sustainable energy, sparking lively conversations about potential innovations. James Parker also found himself drawn into the effort. His piloting skills impressed many of the younger Epsilons who were eager to learn more about interstellar travel. One day, as he gave a demonstration inside a training simulator, a teenager named Kyle asked, "Do you think we could ever visit Earth?" James hesitated before answering, "It's possible. But first, we need to build trust, not just between our worlds, but within your own community. Progress starts here." Kyle nodded thoughtfully, his eyes wide with wonder. For the younger generation, the idea of reconnecting with Earth represented opportunity. chance to explore beyond their isolated system and contribute to humanity's broader story. Despite these positive developments, challenges remained. Samuel Drake continued to oppose cooperation, rallying a small but vocal group of supporters. Though marginalized, his warnings resonated with some who feared losing their identity or autonomy. To counter this, Eleanor organized cultural events celebrating the Epsilon's unique heritage. Artifacts from the colony's early days were displayed alongside interactive exhibits, showcasing their technological achievements. It was a reminder that embracing new connections didn't mean abandoning their roots. Daniel played an active role in these efforts, helping curate displays that highlighted the resilience of the original settlers. As he worked alongside Clara, he marveled at how much the Epsilons had accomplished. "Your ancestors would be proud," he said one afternoon. As they arranged photographs of dusty landscapes transformed into thriving settlements, Clara paused, her gaze softening. "They sacrificed everything for us. Now it's our turn to decide what kind of legacy we leave behind." Her words stayed with Daniel long after they finished setting up. They encapsulated the delicate balance facing the colony, honoring the past while forging a path toward the future. Finally, the moment arrived for a formal agreement between Earth and the Epsilons. Representatives from both sides gathered in the domed chamber, now adorned with banners symbolizing unity. Eleanor stood at the center, flanked by Daniel and Rebecca. Her voice carried authority as she addressed the crowd. "Today marks a new chapter in our history," she began. "For centuries, we have stood alone, building a society rooted in survival and self-reliance. Now, we stand ready to extend a hand to share our knowledge, our struggles, and our dreams. This partnership is not about dominance or dependence. It is about mutual respect and growth." Rebecca stepped forward next, her tone warm yet firm. "Earth recognizes the sovereignty of the Epsilon 7 colony over its star system. We offer no demands, only opportunities for trade, for learning, for understanding. Together, we can achieve what neither of us could accomplish alone." A ripple of applause spread through the room, punctuated by nods of approval. Even some of Samuel's former supporters seemed moved by the sincerity of the proposal. Though not everyone agreed, the majority accepted the terms, marking a historic milestone in human relations. After the ceremony, Daniel and Rebecca prepared to depart. The Orion's Echo awaited them, its engines humming softly as they packed their belongings. Saying goodbye wasn't easy. Over the weeks, they had formed bonds with the Epsilons, especially Eleanor and Clara, as they stood outside the ship. Exchanging final words, emotions ran high. "You've given us hope," Eleanor said, her voice steady but tinged with emotion. "Not just for ourselves, but for all of humanity. Thank you." "It's you who've inspired us," Rebecca replied, smiling. "Your strength, your ingenuity, it reminds us of what we're capable of when we work together." Clara hugged Daniel tightly, surprising him with her warmth. "Don't forget about us," she whispered. "We'll always be part of the same story." "I won't," he promised, feeling a lump rise in his throat. "And neither will Earth." As the ship ascended into orbit, Daniel watched the glowing lights of the colony fade into the distance. He felt a profound sense of gratitude, not just for the discoveries they had made, but for the resilience and determination of the people below. The Epsilons had proven that even in the harshest environments, humanity could thrive. Their existence was a beacon of hope, a testament to the boundless potential of the human spirit. Back on Earth, their report sparked widespread awe and reflection. Images of the colony's advancements captivated audiences worldwide, igniting discussions about sustainability, unity, and exploration. Humanity realized that survival wasn't just about conquering new frontiers, it was about finding balance, respecting diversity, and embracing change. For the Epsilons, the agreement marked a new beginning. Under Eleanor's leadership, they embraced their role as pioneers, bridging two worlds and shaping the future of interstellar relations. Though challenges lay ahead, they faced them with the same resolve that had carried them through centuries of isolation. As the Orion's Echo charted its course home, Daniel allowed himself a moment of quiet pride. The journey had been long, and uncertain, but it had reaffirmed something fundamental. No matter how far apart humans might drift, their shared dreams and struggles could always bring them back together.